In 1021, Europeans reached North America, 500 years before Columbus. They never came back. The most precise date in the story of early North America was not written down by anyone who was there. It was written by the sun. In the winter of 992, a solar storm struck the Earth. A surge violent enough to leave a mark in the rings of trees on every continent in the same year at the same moment. That mark became a signature. 1,000 years later, on the northern tip of Newfoundland, 3 pieces of wood still carried it. Scientists counted the rings outward from that signature to the bark. 29 of them. 1021. That is the year someone stood on this coastline with a metal blade and felled a tree. Not the first tree they cut, not the last. Just the one that survived 1,000 winters long enough to be found. Everything else about that day is unknown. Only this: it happened. By now, this part is well known. The Norse reached North America 500 years before Columbus ever left Spain. They were not new to arriving somewhere and staying. In 911, a Norse chieftain took the lower Seine Valley from the King of the Franks and kept it. It is still called Normandy. A century later, Norse warriors stood guard over the Byzantine emperor's own throne in Constantinople. These were people who knew how to stay. North America was supposed to be no different. In the 1960s, a Norwegian explorer and his archaeologist wife uncovered the proof on the northern tip of Newfoundland. Turf walls, a bronze cloak pin, the unmistakable debris of Norse metalwork. A place called L'Anse aux Meadows. The sagas had a name for the wider land beyond it: Vinland, wineland for grapes said to grow somewhere to the south. The sagas, written 2 centuries after the fact, describe an expedition led by a trader named Thorfinn Karlsefni and his wife, Gudrid. Over 100 people, livestock, sod-walled halls, big enough to shelter a ship's crew apiece, tools for building a life, not just a camp. For a while, it worked. Trade with the people the Norse called skrællingar, likely meaning something close to wearers of skins. Fish, timber. A winter passed, then another. Then it turned. A startled bull, a killing, a return weeks later, with intent. Spears against the tree line. The Norse fled into the forest and did not come back to that spot. The story most people know ends here. A promising foothold, lost to conflict, distance, and cold. A settlement that failed the way settlements fail. It is a clean story, the kind that explains itself. It is also not the one the ground remembers. No cemetery has ever been found at L'Anse aux Meadows. Not one grave in years of digging soil that should hold generations of them. If this had ever been a home in the way Norway or Iceland or Greenland were homes. The layers between occupations are thin, thinner than they should be for people who meant to stay. Whoever ran this camp came and went, perhaps 3 separate years of use, perhaps closer to 13, spread across visits, rather than one long stay. When they finally left for good, they left almost nothing behind. No tools of any real value, no weapons, only what had been dropped or lost or broken beyond caring. A bent needle, a bead, a fragment of a ring. People who are driven out in defeat rarely pack this carefully. Look at what this place actually held, and a different picture forms. An iron smithy, a carpentry shop stocked for repairing ships, not building barns. No pens for livestock. No sign this ground was ever meant to grow anything. Every building here points to one purpose: taking what Greenland did not have timber, hides, and things worth more than either. Walnuts, wild grapes, small, valuable, easy to carry back across an ocean in the hold of a ship. In a peat bog beside the ruins, excavators found 3 butternuts and a fragment of butternut wood. Butternut trees do not grow this far north. Their range begins hundreds of kilometers to the south, past the Gulf of St. Lawrence. Someone from this camp had traveled that distance and come back. Someone else had stayed closer to home. A small stone spindle whirl, a whetstone worn down from sharpening needles. Tools that belonged to women's work in the Norse world. Women had crossed the ocean too. One saga names her Gudrid. It says a son was born to her here, the first of his kind on this side of the ocean. They had a foothold. They had families forming. They had exactly what, on paper, a colony needs in order to become permanent. They still packed up every tool worth carrying and left. As far as the evidence shows, they never came back to this exact spot again. Here is the question worth asking, not why the Norse left Vinland. An expedition is supposed to end. Going home is not a mystery. The real question is why no one came back. Greenland had almost no trees of its own. Every ship's mast, every roof beam, every barrel stave had to be imported, traded for or improvised from driftwood carried in on the current. A source of timber within reach across open water should have been worth returning to again and again. For a while, it seems, someone did. The layers in the ground suggest visits spread across years, maybe a decade or more, before the site went quiet for good. Then, nothing. Not in the sagas, not in the ground. Ships kept sailing from Greenland to Markland, the coast closer to home, also thick with timber, for at least another 3 centuries. One is recorded arriving back off course, blown in from a lumber run in 1347. Vinland, farther out, richer, warmer, is simply absent from that record. Historians can point to reasons. Iceland and Greenland could not spare the people to hold a colony this distant. The land past Lance aux Meadows was not empty, and the Norse were not the only ones with an interest in defending it. Trade routes closer to home may simply have made more sense. Ship for ship, season for season. Any one of these would explain it. None of them has been proven. The sagas were not written to answer this question, and the ground does not explain itself. Perhaps no one decided to stop. Perhaps a ship that was due to sail simply didn't. 1 year, a bad harvest, a death, a war between chieftains back in Norway. Reasons lost to us now. Then it didn't sail the next year either, until Vinland was no longer a plan, only a story people told. The last confirmed Norse visit to this coast is dated to a single year, 1021. Whatever happened, it happened quietly enough to leave no trace at all. What came after, for years, maybe generations, is not recorded, remembered, or known. 500 years after that tree fell, another set of ships crossed the same ocean. They were not looking for Vinland. They were looking for Asia, the one place the Norse had never been trying to reach at all. The Norse had known exactly what they came for. Timber, furs, a handful of walnuts and wild grapes worth the crossing. They took it, loaded their ships, and went home. When the reason to return stopped adding up, they simply stopped. Columbus never had that clarity. He reached land. To his death in 1506, he believed it was the edge of Asia, the coast of China, the islands near Japan, close enough to smell the spice trade he had promised his king. He was wrong every time. He never found out how wrong. That is why he crossed the ocean 4 times. The Norse crossed it once, took what they came for, and never needed to come back.